There's a weight you carry that no one can see. It's not in your muscles or your bones. It's deeper than that, like your soul is wrapped in chains made of exhaustion. You sleep 10 hours and wake up feeling like you haven't rested in years. People look at you and see someone functional, working, smiling, moving through life. But inside, everything feels muted, like you're watching your own life through foggy glass. This isn't sadness. It's not even depression in the way most people understand it. It's something quieter, more persistent. It's the feeling of being tired of existing. Not wanting to die, but not quite feeling alive either. And if you've ever felt this way, you already know that the hardest part isn't the exhaustion itself. It's that no one around you seems to understand why you can't just snap out of it. Today, we're delving into the psychology behind this invisible exhaustion, what's really happening in your brain, and most importantly, how people find their way back to feeling alive again. Psychologists have a name for this state, emotional exhaustion, but that clinical term doesn't quite capture what it feels like. Imagine your mind as a battery that has been drained for so long, it has forgotten how to hold a charge. You're not just tired, you're depleted in a way that sleep can't fix, that vacations can't cure, that even your favorite activities can't touch. What's happening beneath the surface is actually fascinating from a neurological standpoint. When your brain experiences prolonged stress, a phenomenon known as allostatic load accumulates. Think of it as wear and tear on your body's stress response system. Your brain starts pumping out cortisol, your stress hormone, but over time your receptors become desensitized. It's like turning up the volume on a speaker until everything sounds distorted. Your brain is screaming for relief, but the signal isn't getting through anymore. Here's where it gets really interesting. Research from neuroscience indicates that chronic emotional exhaustion can actually alter your brain structure. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making and emotional regulation, begins to shrink. Meanwhile, the amygdala, your fear and anxiety center, becomes hyperactive. This creates a perfect storm where you're simultaneously unable to think clearly and overwhelmed by negative emotions. Your reward system, driven by neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, essentially goes offline. That's why even things you used to love feel empty now. But this isn't a character flaw. It's a biological response to prolonged stress. When your emotional output consistently exceeds your emotional input for months or years, your nervous system shifts into a state of conservation mode. It's trying to protect you, even though it feels like you're falling apart. The people most vulnerable to this aren't the weak ones. They're often the strongest, the caregivers, the high achievers, the ones who've been holding everything together for everyone else while quietly crumbling inside. So, what does this look like in real life? The signs aren't always obvious. You might still go to work, pay your bills, and respond to messages. From the outside, everything appears normal. However, internally, a fundamental shift is underway. Music that once moved you now just feels like noise. Conversations that once energized you now feel like obligations you have to perform your way through. Time itself feels different, slower, heavier, like you're wading through water while everyone else walks on solid ground. This is where anhedonia comes in, the clinical term for the inability to feel pleasure. It's not that you're sad about things no longer bringing you joy. It's that your brain has literally stopped registering pleasure the same way. Imagine living in a world where colors have faded to black and white. Everything is still there, the shapes, the forms, but the vibrancy is gone. That's anhedonia. Your brain has learned that reaching for joy is unreliable, so it stops reaching altogether. It's safer to expect nothing than to be disappointed again. You might notice yourself pulling away from people, not because you don't care about them, but because social interaction requires an energy you simply don't have. Even small talk feels like lifting a mountain. You cancel plans, not out of rudeness, but out of survival. Your nervous system is maxed out, and one more emotional demand might push you over the edge. The isolation becomes both a symptom and a coping mechanism. It's like finding shelter in a storm. Sure, the shelter is empty and quiet, but at least it doesn't demand anything from you. We need to talk about why this is happening to so many people right now. Because this isn't just an individual problem, it's a cultural issue. We live in a society that has commodified rest and weaponized productivity. You're praised for grinding, for hustling, for pushing through. But nobody celebrates the person who takes a mental health day. Nobody gives awards for knowing when to slow down. Recent data paints a troubling picture. Studies show that nearly 70% of American workers report feeling burnt out at some point in their careers. Among millennials and Gen Z, that number climbs even higher. We're more connected than ever through technology, yet rates of loneliness and emotional exhaustion are at record levels. The constant comparison culture of social media doesn't help. You scroll through feeds of people's highlight reels while you're living your behind-the-scenes struggles, and your brain starts asking dangerous questions. Why can't I keep up? What's wrong with me? Here's the trap. In this productivity-obsessed culture, rest feels like failure. You internalize the message that your worth is tied to your output. So even when your body is screaming for a break, your mind whispers guilt. You don't deserve rest until you've earned it. But that's the paradox. If you wait until you've earned rest, you'll never get it. Because there's always another email, another deadline, another expectation. The finish line keeps moving, and you keep running even though you've forgotten why you started. This creates what researchers refer to as the exhaustion guilt cycle. You're exhausted, so you underperform, so you feel guilty. You feel guilty, so you push harder. You push harder, so you become more exhausted. Round and round it goes until something breaks, and that something is usually you. There's another layer to this exhaustion that goes even deeper. It's what some psychologists call existential fatigue, the weariness that comes from living without a clear purpose. You can lead a comfortable life, enjoy stability, and even achieve success by conventional measures. But if none of it aligns with who you truly are, it will drain you drop by drop until you wake up one day wondering how you got so empty. This is where the work of psychologist Viktor Frankl becomes incredibly relevant. Frankl survived Nazi concentration camps and went on to develop logotherapy, a form of therapy based on the idea that humans can endure almost anything if they have a reason why. He watched people in the most horrific conditions imaginable and noticed that those who found meaning, even small meaning, were more likely to survive. Not physically stronger people, not more optimistic people, the ones who had a why. When you're tired of existing, often what you're really experiencing is a crisis of meaning. Wake up, work, scroll, sleep, repeat. The days blur together into an endless loop. Somewhere in that repetition, you lost the thread of why any of it matters. And your soul, in its quiet way, starts asking the hard questions. What's the point? Why am I doing this? Is this all there is? Yeah, but here's what most people miss. That question, as painful as it feels, isn't a sign of hopelessness. It's a sign of awakening. Your deeper self is telling you that something in your life is out of alignment. You've outgrown a version of yourself that was built for survival, and now you're being called towards something more authentic. That discomfort you feel, that's not the end, that's the beginning. Now let's address a crucial aspect that is often overlooked. There's a difference between normal emotional exhaustion and clinical mental health conditions that require professional intervention. If you've been feeling this way for weeks or months, if you're having thoughts of self-harm, if you can't get out of bed or complete basic tasks, or if you're using substances to cope, these are red flags that you need to talk to a mental health professional. Emotional exhaustion can be a symptom of clinical depression, anxiety disorders, or burnout that has progressed to a medical level. And there's absolutely no shame in that. Seeking therapy isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you're taking your mental health as seriously as you would a broken bone. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, has shown remarkable effectiveness for people dealing with chronic exhaustion and lack of motivation. Some people benefit from medication to rebalance neurotransmitters while they do the deeper work of healing. The challenge is that when you're this exhausted, even reaching out for help feels impossible. If that's where you are right now, start small. Text one person you trust, look up one therapist, make one phone call. You don't have to fix everything today. You just have to take one tiny step toward help. Many communities have mental health hotlines, sliding scale therapy options, or online counseling that's more accessible than traditional therapy. The resources exist, you just have to give yourself permission to use them. For those whose exhaustion hasn't crossed into clinical territory, or for those working alongside professional help, there are practical steps that can begin to shift things. Notice I said begin. This isn't about quick fixes. Healing from deep exhaustion is a process, not an event. First, start listening to your body instead of overriding it. Your exhaustion is information. It's your nervous system telling you that something needs to change. Maybe it's your job. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's the impossible standards you've set for yourself. Start paying attention to what drains you and what, even slightly, nourishes you. Keep a simple journal. 3 things that took energy today. 1 thing that gave energy back. Patterns will emerge. Second, rebuild your capacity for rest without guilt. This is harder than it sounds because you've been conditioned to equate rest with laziness. Start treating rest as a non-negotiable part of your routine, like brushing your teeth. Block off time where you do absolutely nothing productive. No self-improvement podcasts, no optimization, just existing. Your nervous system needs to remember what safety feels like. Third, reconnect with small moments of awe. Research in positive psychology indicates that even minor awe experiences can significantly reduce feelings of exhaustion and increase life satisfaction. Watch a sunset, really watch it, not while scrolling your phone. Listen to music that moves you. Lie on the grass and look at the clouds. These aren't frivolous activities, they're neurological reset buttons. Fourth, examine your energy boundaries. Who and what gets access to you? If you're exhausted, you've probably been giving energy to things that don't deserve it, while neglecting things that matter. Learn to say no without explanation. No is a complete sentence. Start protecting your time and attention like the precious resources they are. Fifth, move your body, but gently. Exercise releases endorphins and helps regulate cortisol, but if you're deeply exhausted, training for a marathon may not be the best solution. Walk, stretch, dance in your room. Movement doesn't have to be punishment. It can be a way of reminding yourself that you're still here, still alive. And finally, understand that healing is not a linear process. You'll have good days where you feel like yourself again, and then suddenly you'll have a week where everything feels heavy. That's not failure. That's just how recovery works. Be patient with yourself, the way you'd be patient with a friend going through something hard. One of the most difficult truths about emotional exhaustion is that healing it often requires the very thing that feels impossible: connection with other people. When you're deeply exhausted, relationships feel like work. But humans are wired for connection, and isolation, while it might feel safe in the short term, deepens the exhaustion over time. This doesn't mean you need to force yourself into crowded social situations or pretend to have energy you don't have. It means finding 1 or 2 people who can hold space for your honesty. People who won't try to fix you or give unsolicited advice, but who can simply be present with you in your struggle. Sometimes the most healing thing someone can say is, "I see you. I believe you. You're not crazy for feeling this way." If you don't have people like that in your life right now, consider finding community in unexpected places. Support groups, online forums for people dealing with burnout, and even comment sections under videos like this one, where people share their stories. There's something powerful about realizing you're not alone in this experience, that your exhaustion doesn't make you defective, it makes you human. And as you slowly begin to reconnect, you'll notice something interesting. The people worth keeping in your life are the ones who don't require you to perform for them. They're okay with your silence, they're comfortable with your honesty, they don't need you to be anything other than exactly what you are right now, exhausted and all. Those are the relationships worth protecting. Those are the ones that will help carry you back to yourself. Here's something that deserves its own attention. the role of technology in your exhaustion. We're living in an age of constant stimulation, constant comparison, and constant availability. Your brain wasn't designed for this kind of thinking. The average person checks their phone over 100 times a day. Each notification is a tiny interruption, a small drain on your attention and energy. Social media, in particular, creates what psychologists refer to as passive consumption exhaustion. You scroll, absorbing everyone else's curated lives, achievements, vacations, relationships. Your brain processes all of that as social information, and it's exhausting. You feel like you've been socializing all day when really you've just been watching other people live their lives. It's the emotional equivalent of junk food, filling but not nourishing. Consider this. When was the last time you spent an entire day without checking your phone? When did you last have a meal without scrolling? If the idea of being offline for even a few hours makes you anxious, that's a sign that technology has become a compulsion rather than a tool. Try this experiment. Put your phone in another room for 1 hour. Just 1 hour. Notice what comes up: boredom, anxiety, restlessness. That discomfort is actually important information. Your mind is so used to constant stimulation that silence feels threatening. But in that silence, in that boredom, your nervous system can finally begin to settle. That's where healing happens. So, where does all of this leave us? If you're listening to this and recognizing yourself in these words, I want you to understand something fundamental. Being tired of existing doesn't mean you're broken. It means you've been carrying something too heavy for too long. It means your soul is asking for alignment, for authenticity, for rest that actually restores. The way back isn't dramatic. It's not a sudden epiphany, a life-changing vacation, or a new relationship that fixes everything. It's quieter than that. It's a series of small choices made day after day. Choosing rest over productivity, choosing honesty over performance, choosing meaning over motion. You start to notice small shifts. One morning you wake up and music sounds a little clearer. You have a conversation that doesn't drain you. You laugh, really laugh, and remember what joy feels like. These moments are fragile at first, like candles in the wind, but they're proof that you're still capable of feeling, still capable of healing. The people who make it through this kind of exhaustion often emerge with something precious, the ability to live more authentically. They've learned what matters and what doesn't. They've discovered that their worth isn't tied to their productivity. They've built lives that prioritize peace over performance, and that transformation, while born from pain, becomes their greatest strength. So if you're in that dark place right now where everything feels heavy and pointless, hold on. Not because everything will magically get better, but because small shifts are possible. Your exhaustion is not the end of your story, it's the middle. And the chapters ahead, when you start writing them from a place of truth rather than obligation, might surprise you. You're not too far gone, you're just finally ready to come home to yourself.